Okay. I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting of March 18th, 2026 to order. First item on the agenda, if we could have everyone stand, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Also, I forgot to mention the time. The time is 6:30. All right. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hicks? Here. Commissioner McHouston?
Here.
Commissioner Mullins?
Here.
Commissioner O'Brien?
Here.
Vice Chair Mild?
Here.
And Chair Miller?
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any public comments tonight that are not on the agenda?
No public comments for items off the agenda.
Okay. We'll go into the consent agenda for the Planning Commission meeting minutes of February 18th, 26. Any comments, questions, any motions to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion.
We have a
To
motion.
approve.
Do we have a second? Second, we have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay. Is there any ex parte disclosures needed tonight, this time? No. Hearing none. Okay, we'll start into the public hearing. Item number 2.
Okay. So we can open the hearing, and Kenny Taylor will do the staff presentation.
Kenny Taylor, planning consultant, and I will be presenting conditional use permit 250010 to the Planning Commission. And this is for the construction of after the fact modular office parking lot area, and to allow shipping containers on site located at 31925 Outer Highway 10. So the project is located along Outer Highway 10 and 17th Street. The owner has 2 continuous parcels on site under the current operation. And this was previously approved under conditional use permit 21148. And that was for storage operations on site. The owner also owns an additional parcel below, and I'll explain that parcel later in the presentation. So the project overview, what's being presented tonight to the Planning Commission will allow for the modular trailer, approximately 1,421 square feet, along with the shipping containers. That modular office has a patio deck, canopy, as explained with the off-street parking that's required for the administrative use. This proposed use is allowed within the Service Commercial District, of course, approval through the Planning Commission. Today, the Planning Commission can approve the project or make modifications, deny, or continue to a further date. So on the site plan to the left was the approval for the storage yard that basically had no permanent structures on site. What's being proposed is after the fact, which will include the modular as well as the parking area, landscaping as well. And this is a visual, as mentioned, the conditions under conditional use permit 21148. And then on the right, it's what's being proposed today. So as mentioned, the parcel below is actually within the City of Redlands district. the city of Redlands does not allow for outdoor storage containers or this type of operation within city limits. So the applicant would need to annex that parcel to the city of Yucaipa and then do a parcel merger and then modify the conditional use permit to allow that storage use on that parcel. So here is the office building and floor plan. The office building will be used for administration uses, and that includes several offices as well as a break room, restroom shown on site. And then below you have the site plan, and the site is roughly over an acre. 12% landscape is being proposed. And this proposed project does comply with the required setbacks within the CS zone. As shown there, there is a parcel boundary that splits the deck. Since the property owner owns both parcels, it's basically considered one parcel lot. Staff will condition to have a covenant to ensure that lot is going to be maintained by one owner to allow the deck if approved by the Planning Commission. So here is the existing conditions of the site in regards to landscaping and screening. Additional landscaping, staff is recommending additional landscaping to screen the storage containers, as well as the trailers and the modular office building. The proposed landscaping would be fir pines that would be proposed off of Outer Highway 10. Additional landscaping would need to be screened from 17th Street. Also, you see here is a chain link fence as well as a wrought iron fence. Staff has recommended the applicant to screen with the block wall along both property fronts. Therefore, you can further screen the sea containers on site as well as the modular building. So this is the architectural elevation. As previously mentioned, this would be a modular building, utilitarian in design, prefab material, and the colors are earth tone. The photo below is the modular building on site facing Outer Highway 10. And as you can see there is some landscaping existing on site with the wrought iron fencing. So in doing our history, staff has discovered the last modular building that was approved adjacent to Outer Highway 10 was under building permit 120162. And this was approved February 26, 2013. Since then, there has not been any further approvals for a modular building off Outer Highway 10, to my knowledge. And our design guidelines were approved in 2019 that was consistent with the general plan. So kind of as a benchmark of project approvals that has been approved by the Planning Commission, the Cochran Engineering Building that has a craftsman design, very similar to what's being proposed tonight that would allow an office building and outdoor storage, but you can see here it does have a split face block wall as well as the architectural design that fits the needs of the general plan as well as the design guidelines. The next building you have here, Hillgrew office building that was approved in 2019 that has more of a mountain lodge design with stone veneers. And then recently, the Aussie Jewelry contemporary architectural that's going in adjacent to Outer Highway 10 and Yucaipa Boulevard. These have been projects approved by the Planning Commission through a design review permit that's been acceptable. So consistency with the design guidelines and the general plan, the proposed project does meet parking requirements, circulation, required setbacks. It can be accessed from Outer Highway 10 to 17th Street, and outdoor storage is allowed through a conditional use permit. The issues that staff has is findings 1 and 5 regarding the modular office materials that's being proposed, as well as the landscaping that will screen the outdoor storage, including the sea containers, and no landscaping currently being proposed off 17th Street. This project is exempt per sequence section 15332 infill development. No further environmental analysis is required. And then tonight, Planning Commission's options. So option 1, you can approve this project as currently being built and proposed. However, staff would need to straighten findings 1 and 5. Option 2, you can approve with modifications. And again, that would be to have a stronger design that's more acceptable, including screening. And findings will still need to be made for 1 and 5. Option 3, Planning Commission can deny the project since not all findings can be made by staff. And then finally, the 4th option is to continue the project and allow for revisions to the plans and additional information in regards to the building and the screening requirements. And that concludes my presentation. Staff is here to answer any questions, as well as the applicant is present.
We'll open up the public hearing. The time is 6:42. Okay. I would urge all of us, if we have questions, just ask of the staff right now to give the applicant the opportunity to respond to some of it. Because I know we're going to have some questions here, and it gives them an opportunity to address those issues. Okay, so with that being said, questions for staff?
Would you mind reviewing, I know it was in the report, but just for a record, what we mean by a freeway corridor specific plan, image zone, higher standards?
Yeah, so the freeway kind of image standards is from the city's design guidelines. It isn't necessarily tied to the freeway corridor specific plan, but it's more of if you're a traveler or someone passing through Yucaipa Interstate 10, as we want kind of the first image that people have of the community to be a positive one. We do have a lot of kind of historic uses along the freeway from, the county days, many decades ago. Some of them are attractive, some of them are a little bit less so, and so the design guidelines is to slowly enhance that. It's also within the city's general plan, kind of looking at that area, so Dunlap Acres and all that, to really just see the transformation of that area. So when you're passing through Yucaipa, it's more attractive and a more memorable experience. And so some of the projects that Kenny had identified kind of show those efforts to improve the design along that area.
Okay, thank you.
Curious about the Redlands connection you were talking about. Mm-hmm. How does that work? Can you explain?
Yeah, so that is very interesting that a lot of the properties off of Outer Highway 10 is adjacent to the city of Redlands.
Yes.
This property owner not only purchased the 2 parcels in the city of Yucaipa, but the parcel south, which is in the city of Redlands. So he can continue his storage operation on that parcel, but that would need to be annexed to Yucaipa. So he would have to go through LAFCO for the annexation and, get approved through that process. And then once it's annexed to the city, then we would require a modification of the conditional use permit.
Yeah, so it sounds like from Redlands that the storage operation uses is not allowed in their commercial district for that property. And so since they've kind of spread into that, technically similar to this kind of code enforcement action, is Redlands wouldn't have a method to approve it themselves without either rezoning, which it sounds like they're probably not looking to do, or having the project annexed into Yucaipa and then incorporating it into our development standards.
So it's a piece that fronts the frontage road, or is it,
It's off of 17th Street, so
on 17th?
Yeah.
So it's a piece that wraps around behind the pawn shop.
Well, actually, I think it's a little confusing because there's 2 parcels that are in the city of Yucaipa, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
The third parcel is to the south or right above it that only fronts on 17th, and that one where you see the C4.
C4 is the
Okay,
one?
that's the one apparently he owns. That's in the city of Redlands.
Okay.
Yeah, all those properties have a Redlands zip code and mailing address, but anything that's directly touching Outer Highway 10 is within the city of Yucaipa.
Right.
And then everything that is not touching it is within the city of Redlands. So you tend to see the boundary jump around depending on how the parcels are laid out.
Yeah, I see now the C4 where, that makes more sense. So the other question I have is, so basically the plan we have before us is for, was a submittal on a code enforcement action, right?
yes, we didn't actually open up a code enforcement case. We were willing to work with the applicant to seek possible approval through the planning commission. And so that took a little time. So we're here now. And tonight is going to be the decision whether you guys want to move forward with this action for approval or not.
Okay. So the plan that's presented doesn't have the block walls that you're suggesting, nor
Correct.
How about so it doesn't have a landscaping plan at this time, but percentage of landscaping is required, right?
Right. So our landscape architect required the fir pines to be planted along Outer Highway 10. And that's kind of mentioned in the staff report. Now, those trees would screen the frontage part, but keep in mind that this parcel is kind of on a slope. So you may not fully screen the storage containers and the modular building. And I believe there would be possibly grading that would need to be done to flatten the surface. So therefore, it could be screened properly out of Outer Highway 10 and off of 17th Street.
I do want to just, I think, kind of add in. So the design of this site has been a point of concern that the staff has identified with the applicant kind of at the start. So some of the additional landscaping is part of their effort to respond to that. And then the porch kind of patio and lattice cover over the modular office is also another effort that they were taking to help address staff's concerns. So if you see on the image below, there's no kind of lattice or kind of wraparound porch. And so they had as their solution was to kind of create that look while retaining the modular office structure and the overall design of that.
Okay. And we have under the new signage code that was passed last year, for signs that are on trucks or trailers or that type of thing, has that been taken into consideration on this one?
So the sign code provisions, I think they're referring to, were not adopted by City Council.
That portion was not?
No.
Okay.
So City Council didn't modify any of the sign code stuff.
Did they? Okay. Okay.
A thought on that incline that you're referring to, Kenny, right?
Correct.
You're saying from 17th Street going south, like toward that Redlands parcel, there's kind of a rise and incline there, so anything in the back is gonna be seen or be more visible. It's taller to the street than the stuff maybe up front.
That is correct, out of Outer Highway 10. So, there's a slope and grade. I can't get the exact percentage, but maybe 2 to 5%, where you can still see storage in the back facing from Outer Highway 10.
Speaking of storage, my understanding is this applicant bought the property maybe 3 years ago or something like that?
Yes.
Okay. Just to clarify, permitting for the module, permitting for the eight storage units, was that done?
Shipping containers.
Shipping containers.
No. So we have not permitted those shipping containers or the modular as of yet.
So like a shipping container in a residential property,
Correct.
it's required to have T111 on the outside minimum and a roof structure on it.
So to my understanding, shipping containers do require a building permit. If it's stored on site longer than 180 days, that trumps the building permit requirement.
I think to respond, so the T111 siding, kind of the shed-like appearance, is certainly kind of the go-to for shipping containers on residential properties. Commercial properties have a little bit more discretion from the Plan Commission, and it depends on how visible they are. There has been cases where they are dressed up with kind of additional structural elements to disguise it. If it's much more reserved and hidden, the standard conditions be that they all be painted to match kind of what's going on elsewhere, but it's has depended on what the site considerations are, how visible is it from the general public, or even, if it's in a center or some sort of thing, is it open to the public, or if it's purely industrial where there's no one going there, then the flexibility is a little bit different. So
Okay.
it's not been consistent.
Yeah, I think when you think of storage units, there's a concrete slab as part of the permit. I was on the general plan, and I think the intent of the outer highway was permanent buildings. This is a temporary module office building. Is there a time frame for that to become permanent?
So to my knowledge, and the applicant can clarify, if the planning commission was to approve this project, this would be a permanent building on site.
This module?
Correct.
So that leads me to my question. So if they bought this 3 or 4 years ago and nothing was there, and then they came to you guys and said, here's what we want to do, what would we require? Like, would it have to be stick built? What kind of landscaping would it require? What would be the requirements if they were fully permitting it?
Right. So it would be subject to a building permit. However, it would be also subject to the planning commission to allow a modular building versus a stick-built building on site.
I think to answer your question kind of more directly, if an applicant came to us for a similar desire to have a storage operation and administrative office, we would direct them to a stick-built structure and something with a little bit more permanence and a little bit more screening effect for those operations, given the visibility of this site and where it's located.
Okay.
On the storage tank, the water storage tank that's there, is that in use or is that just being stored?
I think the bid water storage tank is part of their construction stuff. I don't know if it's on there currently. I know that they're doing construction in City of Redlands. Kenny, you're going the wrong way.
Is it used to wash the equipment that comes in?
What?
Is it used to wash the equipment that comes in, or?
I think it's used on their actual construction site. So I think the bid water tank that had been up there, I think is currently in the City of Redlands where they're building the CarMax structure. So that tank there, I don't know if it's currently there. I know they have another one on their active construction site. So I think they take them in service for when they have a construction project and it's not used on site, but the applicant can provide more
So it's
information.
being used as signage right there then, most likely.
In effect, yeah, it's kind of unpermitted signage.
And then the modular, it has restrooms, water. Did it get connected to water? Is it operational currently?
So, since there's no approved entitlement, it shouldn't have been connected to water. There's also no sewer in this area, so it does require regional water quality control board permits for the septic tank. So,
Is there a septic tank? Is the restroom being used? How's it in operation currently today, as you know?
that will be a question, I think, for the applicant. It should not be connected, given that those permits have not been sought or reviewed by the city.
And it's not Yucaipa Valley water, is that correct? I think in the report it mentions
It should be
another water
Western
company.
Heights.
It's Western Heights.
Western Heights water, and then, yeah, there's no sewer in that vicinity.
When I went by it today, that storage container we're talking about, which obviously advertises their business and it's high up, is now moved. It's moved for whatever reason back, and the storage units are pretty much covering it up back there, so I'm not sure why it was moved, but if it's a signage thing.
So also the project is conditioned, if there's no septic on site, they would need to connect to the sewer line.
So they would have to connect to the sewer. And what about,
Well, there is no sewer in the area. They would have to get approval from Santa Ana Water Quality Control to be able to put septic in there.
and has the drainage on the property been looked at if they are using that water tank for any purposes?
Yes, as of right now, no, we have not reviewed that as being proposed.
Okay.
It's not listed on the site plan, so it's not a detail that they're showing. If it was to be used, that should have been identified on their plans prepared by their engineer.
Okay, and one last question on the modular. The orientation, I thought I saw, instead of the orientation with the end facing the 10 outer highway, or the 10 freeway, it was more, the front face was facing the 10. Did I get confused? Is it in this plan, or?
Yes, so let me go ahead and bring up the site plan. So the frontage would be faced towards the parking lot. So the front would be facing west, and then the side would be facing Highway 10.
Okay.
Question down here?
Yeah, Kenny, I know the report mentions that had a change of ownership, but did the applicant give any other explanation as to why permits were pulled to build a modular on site?
No, as of yet, and the applicant can explain once they come up to the dais and give us further details.
Other questions of staff? This time? Driving down there several times and looking at, there are some other portable offices down there. I believe there's in a car lot there, just a few doors down, there's one that sits back on a narrow lot. I think it appears to be a modular. And I think there's some other modulars right behind, I'm dating myself, going back to where Dickinson's Hardware used to be, which I think was a pool supplies and something else. I think they have some other modulars back there.
Yeah, there's as I kind of mentioned with the freeway kind of gateway kind of standards, there's a recognition that what happened along Outer Highway 10 and Dunlap, throughout the different decades before city incorporation, there's kind of a hodgepodge of structures that have been there for a long time and kind of legal non-conforming, so to speak, in those regards.
As far as screening around these properties, typically, we have some type of buffer zone, right, with landscaping. If they were to do wrought iron, they would have to have landscaping of 10 feet or so, and something that would grow up and be some type of solid screening. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so depending on kind of what the effect is, we want to make sure that that it is effectively screened in, so a solid kind of cover at maturity is important, and so kind of depends on how tall they need to go and what kind of plant. So, if you're doing bigger trees, then your width spacing may need to be a little bit larger to accommodate those species and what their planting requirements are.
Okay, but I believe on the proposal they have, is it a podocarpus?
Podocarpus.
Yeah,
Correct.
which grows up and can fill in depending how closely they're planted.
Yeah, and some of it with the podocarpus also depends on how they're kind of pruned on the start and kind of the shape that they do.
And with any approvals in that, we also then have the authority to make sure that they maintain that after the fact too, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I believe on the modular, they're talking about doing some stonework in that and trying to make it look a little bit more like a stick-built.
Yeah, so that's kind of where that enhanced kind of patio cover feature is. So that would include kind of a stone-based detailing and then kind of rise up from there. So they were using, the proposal involves using that additional structure to be built onto it to add a little bit more detailing.
Okay, in lieu of stone?
The stone would be on that, but it wouldn't be on the actual modular structure based on the plans provided.
Oh, okay, I see, just on the post.
Yep.
On the base of the post there. It brought to my attention, there's an RV there, and it appears that like possibly somebody's living there too. It was a question I had, somebody had questioned me about. You think you answered the question whether or not there was a septic on the property, or if they connected to it, if there's working bathrooms in there. My other question is, we're only addressing the 2 parcels with the city of Yucaipa, so with anything we look at, we need to look at just those 2 parcels, irregardless whether they own the property to the south or not.
That is correct. So the Redlands parcel, that'll probably be up to Redlands if they want to initiate a code enforcement action, and then wherever the cards may fall on that one will be.
But I'm proposing that any decision, if we choose to make a decision tonight to move forward, we need to look at that as this is a 2-parcel project. Even though he owns that 3rd parcel there, he could sell that tomorrow. So we need to address those items based on that.
Yeah.
One of the other things, and I think you brought up in there, was any type of storage equipment, or not storage equipment, but portable buildings or storage containers and that. Looking at one of the pictures there seems to be a couple of different colors and all that. And I believe he had one of the requirements that they all be painted consistently.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's kind of the bare minimum that we have.
Okay. All right. Other questions?
Just to clarify what you were saying about other modules in the area, and Commissioner Mild, am I saying it right? Mild. So 2019, I think, is a benchmark that whatever, I think staff's saying whatever's out there now that are modules was done prior to 2019, but when anybody comes now, they're subject to the new design standards.
That is correct.
Okay.
I was going to just point something out. As Ben and Kenny were responding to some of the specific questions, I did find the section of the city's design guidelines for the freeway gateway. It's section 2.4.3. So there's quite a bit of detail in there that Ben and Kenny here highlighted, but just in case anybody wanted to reference that specifically in the guidelines.
Okay. Other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, would the applicant like to address the planning commission tonight? Please state your name and address. Yes, yes.
Is there a way that I
Couldn't
can,
pull the microphone down towards you there.
okay.
Thank you.
better? This is my wife Lynette. I'm Gene Johnson. Is there a way that I can give you pictures to put on the screen, or is that not possible?
You'd have
Because
to ask
the
staff
pictures you
there.
have are pretty outdated. Is that,
Yeah, we're not able to do that, but if you do have printed out pictures, we can.
I can pass them around.
Yeah, we
Maybe I
can pass.
Maybe I
Maybe I
can,
could discuss them and then pass them around?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so you know, and I don't know if my fellow commissioners, and if you want to say, have you been by the project or by the property in the last few days? I mean, you see it every day?
I have not.
You haven't?
2 days ago, I might have driven down.
Okay. I've been by there twice today. Yeah, so we've all been there recently. Just
Okay.
So you're aware of that.
Okay. So when we met with Ben and Christian in April of last year to first talk about getting permits, a conditional use permit for this office, At that time, they told us, and they actually through this whole process with Ken, the different concerns. So we've made efforts in this while we're applying to improve the property. So there is now a tan colored covering on all the chain link fence all the way around. If you've been by there, then you've seen it on the sides, except for the front, because on the initial, the conditional use permit that I have now, I called out for wrought iron and the landscape that's there. So, but on the sides to block the view, we put that in. They had concerns about the water tower. The water tower, there's no way to put water in it. It's empty, and it goes from job to job, and then we use it on the job. So as far as the runoff or things, it doesn't have any water in it. So it's stored there. That was brought to my attention that was a concern, that it was a sign. So we took it down and moved it to the back of the property. I have two of them. The other one is, like you said, in CarMax. Yeah. So they said that would be considered signage. So we took it down and moved it to the back of the property so that it wasn't the signage. The T111 siding, so that container that's blue now, all those containers are painted the same color as the office, and then I painted the trim, the brown trim around all of them. So they all match the office now. And like I said, just in an effort to try to get what we were told that you'd be looking for. If, like on that blue container, it's painted the same color as the office with brown trim, if T111 on the side of that would help, then that's not a problem. The permit I have now is for construction materials and equipment. If I leave equipment like jumping jacks and hand tools out, they're going to get stolen. So I have to have a way for the containers to put the hand tools and the smaller stuff that can be stolen. The other equipment doesn't. Since I bought the property, I put in security cameras and lights all the way around, and they're on a 30-day loop, and there's a monitor on that so that we can go back in time on that. The existing trailer is not being used, the mobile home. I had brought that from another job, and at the time it was in two pieces and unpainted. And if you went back in history on it, you'd see it. So in the permit process, we wanted to look good. So we painted it, I put a skirt around it, but it hasn't been used. There's no power and water to it. There's no septic. It does have ADA bathrooms, but it's not being used as an office. There's some stuff stored in there, but there's nothing you could go in it. There's no. The only thing that's in there is there's power to the security cameras. I needed a place to. That computer for the security cameras. Water tower, it's not operational. Septic, when we talked about this in the beginning, that was a concern that there was no sewer, so they said I'd have to put a septic tank in and get an engineer and do all that stuff. The RV, that's our personal RV, and I do like to leave the TV on there and the lights. I want people to think there's somebody living there. We'll park our extra car in front of it. I put 2 chairs out in front. It's just part of the security. I will use it when we go on trips. We'll come and load stuff up and then take it out, but nobody's living in it. It's just, but I do leave the lights on at night so that it looks like somebody's living in it. So since we've done the cameras and the lights, and before this RV, I had another little trailer parked there with lights on it, and that really we haven't had a single problem with theft since, because there's nothing visible to be stolen, and it looks like somebody's there. Are there other questions I can answer?
Questions for the applicant?
The remodeling, you want to put the rock on the building as well?
Yeah, like the other picture that showed the new roof that Ben had suggested, the wraparound porch. So we wanted to put the rock on the pillars, like what the city has out front, and then along the bottom of the trailer, so that skirt was covered in the same rock as the pillars.
Make it look more like a stick building.
Okay. All right. Any other
Questions of the applicant?
So you stated the modular is not being used currently? It just has the computer and the
Yeah.
system?
in the one room that's labeled storage, that's where the computer system is.
So currently today, you have no restroom facilities on the site at all?
I do. I have a porta potty. It gets serviced once a week for the men to use. It's outside. It's on the south side of the trailer. So we pay Diamond Valley to come and pump it out every week. That's for the men when they're picking up parts or dropping off parts, so they have a place to use.
Okay. Questions? Other questions from the applicant?
Yeah, the permitting of the module and the storage units, that's been 3 years.
Well, I'm a little confused about the storage because units being part of this office, because on the original permit, when I bought the property, it says, I can read it to you, it says it's for planning use permit established on this lot is establish an open lot storage facility to store materials and light equipment. So we move some of those containers to jobs with the parts in them, sometimes they're there. So that's why, I'm okay with putting the T111 on the one that stays all the time, but some of the other ones come and go from jobs. But I still painted them all to match the office. So when they're there, they look good.
You mentioned that permit is for open storage, but there's nothing says it's permitted for a modular building.
Correct. That's what I thought I was applying for, was for a permit to get a modular building. The storage of the equipment and the containers, I don't understand why that's part of this, what I'm seeking in a permit for the office.
If we were to open up 8 storage units, what would we find?
Tools and hardware, fabric that we use, some material, I guess you'd call it materials and parts, pumps, hoses.
Jumping jacks, shovels.
Yeah.
How many were there in April when you came here or had a proposal?
There were more, and there was concern about them, so I moved them to the back lot, but now that's an issue, so we just may have to thin the herd a little bit.
I have a neighbor, that has some storage units, shipping units, whatever you want to call them, and I'm understanding from staff that 180 days, concrete slabs, permits, nobody told you that.
No, it just said that I could store stuff on the site.
Well, you got a lot of stuff you're storing, a lot. Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
Yeah, so you said that when you applied for the permit, you were applying for the modular unit. So
Correct.
did you apply for that before the modular was installed or after it was installed?
After it was already on site. We started putting it up, and then we found out we could not put it up without a permit, so we stopped. That's why nothing else has been done on it. But we went ahead and painted it and put the skirt on it because it looked nicer.
I think we're grateful that Yucaipa can have outside storage, unlike Redlands. And you've certainly done some due diligence with land use, building height, setbacks, some landscaping along 17th with the wrought iron railing. But I think the rub is this freeway gateway intent from general plan. And it has basically embedded in it, I guess it's code 2.4.3, a higher standard of architectural presence and aesthetics and design and permanent buildings, zone commercial. Do you have any intent of this, quote, temporary module to become a permanent stick building?
Yeah, I actually want to build a storage building, an office building on the others to the west of this. But when I first met with Ben, I said, can I get a temporary use permit until I can get the plans and permit to build a permanent building?
What do you
And
see
it
as a
was
time frame?
suggested to apply for a permanent use permit for the building, and then I could build my other building on the other lot.
What would you see as a time frame to get that done?
Well, it's taken me a year to not have a permit on the temporary. I don't know what the time length is to get a permit for a permanent use building. It's been a year now since we first started.
But the permanent building would be in Redlands on that property, or?
Well, I didn't want to. I could build a commercial building on that property. I wanted to have my business in Yucaipa. What?
It is commercial.
It is
property.
commercial, and we could do that, but I wanted to have a business in Yucaipa. We plan on moving to Yucaipa. We live in Lake Arrowhead now. I thought that having a business in,
We'd like to be closer to the freeway if we could.
Well, the Redlands parcel zoned residential, wouldn't it be?
no, it's zoned commercial.
Is it? Okay.
So I guess if you absolutely shut everything down on this, then I would have to build it in the Redlands property. But I'd rather build it here. And so,
When did the modular office building actually land on that property?
if you go on Google Earth to time, you'll see when I brought it in, it was parked the other way and it wasn't painted. If you go to Google Earth, because I can't give you the exact date, but this would tell you.
It was sometime in
You'd have to go back in time.
2024.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Or no, I see it actually before that. So it was 2023.
2023.
So when you put that on the property in 2023, did you come down to the city for a permit?
No, I didn't know that I needed one for a mobile office. It came from a job site, so it was a construction trailer to me.
We were just gonna store it, then we decided
Yeah.
to move.
Other questions?
So just, this is, your plan is this is temporary. You plan on doing a stick-built building down the line.
Correct.
And I think what Kirsten was asking is like what your time frame is. Let's take out the permit part. Like if you could get it done in any time frame you wish you could handle and have control of what is it? Is that 5 years? Is it 10 years?
I would think 5 years.
Okay.
That would be
So,
on the, I hope it wouldn't take that long.
and then the modular would disappear and we'd have a stick-built building that conforms to, I think, what everybody's kind of looking for. So, okay.
But that's not what we're.
I know, but I'm just saying, I'm just curious what his time frame is. Okay.
If I may add in, I think when we had met with the applicant kind of early on, it was trying to figure out what their long-term plans were, and the legitimization of what had been placed there without permits and the timeline that they had wasn't something that fell within the temporary use permit. And so it was kind of like, okay, well, these are different options, and the pursuit ended up being to do the conditional use permit for what's kind of there with those additional enhancements. So again, I think going back, that's what's before us tonight is that certainly if they have kind of a different schedule, then we can kind of evaluate a revised conditional use permit and architecture review, and then reshift this to temporary use permit instead, if that's more aligned with their schedule.
So the one I'm thinking of is Markarian's building that was on California Street. That was a modular that had been put in, had temporary tank in it to pump. All the sewage went into a temporary tank. It was a mess, but.
Yeah, and that one, they had the temporary use permit for the modular office, but that tank condition, all that stuff was not permitted. So it was a code enforcement case before that left. So I wouldn't use that as a good example, but there have been other cases where they've done kind of a temporary office for construction.
Sure.
And that's a little bit different. But even if you were, let's say, a home builder and you were building a bid project, if you had a modular office, it still requires a temporary use permit before the set down.
Well, I think one of the examples that's on the on Dunlap Boulevard on the other side of the freeway that was just a couple of years old, it had a block wall across the front, or has a block wall, and solid gates, and then the office sits right up at the street, so it sets even with the fences, the entrance to it. So that's a wide piece of property and everything. I think probably the concern more is visibility from the freeway, because I was on planning commission when it came through before, and I asked questions about it, and it was equipment parking, construction equipment parking. And I specifically asked if there were going to be tractors semi-trucks or semi-trucks pulling in and out and people, one of my concerns with semis was drivers coming in at night having no restroom facilities, and was assured that wasn't what it is. But it's kind of two different things. I mean, it immediately went to construction and the water tank came out front, and, you know, I'm a old contractor, so I think the biggest thing is probably, you know, screening, and not, if you had a block wall on the side around the neighbors and across the front and a solid screened, that would probably close off a lot of the visibility issues and make it look better from the freeway. And then if there was a time frame on the trailer that staff agreed was reasonable, you know, moving towards, I would think that would be more of a solution. Because I think just in general, because of the narrowness of the lot, you know, the screening, so, you know, you don't see the boat with the cover on it. And, you know, I have a lot of junk too. I like my junk, but but it's visibility.
All right, but what I have your attention, can you go to the picture? It's a more recent picture where the landscaping has grown and I've moved there.
Yeah.
So that's going to continue to grow, and on the new plan, you asked for bigger, taller trees behind that.
Yeah.
Would you really rather have a block wall there instead of all the landscaping, or the wrought iron with the bushes that are there and trees behind it?
Well, I'm just, you know,
I mean,
just one guy making a suggestion. I'm not,
Yeah, well,
you know.
I'm just, when I look at other property down the street and it's just a block wall, I think that the greenery with the wrought iron fence.
I think the desire is, you know, because like Ben said, there's stuff from when the county was here, and there's a lot of old stuff you can't do much about. And so the hope is to improve the look from the freeway and from the frontage road over time. And I think that's gonna be the rub with some of the fellow commissioners on,
I was trying, okay?
Is that picture there, your neighbor to the east is the Yucaipa Jewelry and what do you call it?
Pawn shop.
Loan. Is that the shrubbery, looking at it from the jewelry going west?
No, this is out of
that-
10 highway.
Well, when I was out there, like today, I saw shrubbery much lower than that in the front on 17th.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't see that.
No, yeah, this is on the front side on outer 10 highway. This is what you'd see from the freeway and driving on outer 10 highway.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I was seeing more lower type of greenery.
I
Maybe
think
that
on to
picture-
the right of the gate, they don't have the taller bushes behind the wrought iron. Left of the gate, they do have some taller bushes, okay? And then if you go up, what would be the line between the modular and the pawn shop, there's a couple of bushes. And then I have questions over how you've used some of that screening up there over the chain link fence, which I personally find unacceptable,
Okay.
okay? And so, and I think as some of my fellow commissioners have stated, there needs to be some things worked out here to be able to continue forward on this. I'll just open up any other questions of the applicant right
Just
now.
one
Go
last
ahead.
question. I think it's 9 parking spaces, is that correct, out in front of the modular? Or something to that effect? What is that material for the parking spaces?
Yeah, that would be 9 parking spaces with 1 space for ADA accessibility.
Yeah,
And is
so,
that-
and so this is for the office, because of the office square footage, it triggers the additional spaces, and it does require it to be paved asphalt.
There's some already there, right?
There was, when
It was
they,
put
when,
in?
it was Kevin Sarton was the original, property owner. Because he was just kind of doing a small scale, storage, he had like a beekeeping business and some other stuff.
Oh, it was there when you purchased it?
Yeah,
yes.
the three
Okay,
or four spaces, yeah.
Did you say the parking spaces do not have to have asphalt, concrete? It can be dirt,
No, they need to be paved.
paved?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Other questions? No. Questions? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, typically I would have you sit back down, but, and I want to explain to, as Ben did earlier, what's going to take here. We could approve, we can deny, we can continue here, okay? If we continue, you've gotten some input here, gives you an opportunity to go back and work with staff and maybe try to find after some input here from the Planning Commission. If we continue forward tonight, you could get a denial, okay? I'm gonna go out on the wing a little bit here. I'm not willing to approve as submitted, okay? There'd be numerous changes, okay? So I'll give you the opportunity, if you would prefer us to do a continuation, give you time to come back and work with staff after the input that you've had from the Planning Commission. I'll give you that latitude right here for a second, if you'd like, or we can continue forward with the hearing.
Yeah, no, I'd appreciate that. I kind of stepped on my engineer's toes because I was eager to get up here and talk to you personally. Would it be okay if he?
Sure, yeah, if you have a representative you'd like to address us, that'd be fine.
Okay. All right.
Hi, my name's Steve Ritchie, Land Engineering Consultants. I don't know that I can add a whole lot to what he has already explained to you guys, but I'll give you my 2 cents on things and the process of some of the things that we've gone through on this project. I mean, my understanding is he bought a piece of property that was already entitled for outside storage of equipment or materials or whatever. And to me, that's the biggest concern I think anyone would have about, you know, blocking the view of a site. You don't want to see a bunch of debris or stuff all over a piece of property. I think it's unsightly. I think him, because he has stuff he doesn't want to get stolen, and he's had some issues with that in the past, putting them in containers, I think is, you know, a lot more pleasant of a view of a piece of property, especially if it's approved for equipment and storage already. I think he moved onto the property and brought some, you know, this modular building and pieces and it was really just for storage until he could get approval. I think the planning staff did indicate there was no code enforcement case on him. He got the stuff there. I think he had to move it from wherever he was. He bought the property, and then he wanted to apply to the city and do it right, and apply and get the proper permits. So it's not like he was trying to do something illegal. He thought he had approval already from the previous approval for storage of stuff, but maybe different things are permitted differently. So I can see where that, you know, would become a concern with the city eventually if he hadn't already started a process of approval. Let's see, so again, the previous approval was proof for all that, was approved with a wrought iron fence and landscaping out front. It wasn't, I don't know what the year was, but it wasn't that long ago that was approved. I want to say it was approved in 22 or something like that, but 22. Therefore, I mean, again, I think he kind of indicated, the owner, that really he's really just coming in for approval to have an office building on site. And like he said, I think he put those together to make it look a little better than just a storage of a bunch of trailers and containers. And yeah, that's where we got involved at that point in time to initiate a CUP process with the city. My opinion is the building isn't something we're trying to hide from the public. And I mean, I think what we're trying to do is dress it up with some recommendations we got from staff that might help to do that. And he's all ready to go with the conditions that we got for doing that. but apparently something's changed with, like you said, some corridor along the freeway. I'm not sure if that changed before the previous approval or not, but I'm just a little surprised that the building is more of a focus of blocking the view and changing what was previously approved for the site. Like I said, with the wrought iron fence and landscaping. I think what we really focused on was, and I'm assuming you guys have a landscape plan. I didn't see it up there, that we had an architect put together for it, but that was definitely to add the trees and more dense coverage there. Of course, the vegetation that the previous guy put in, takes a long time to grow sometimes, so you're not going to block too much in its current condition, but that's what was conditioned before for all the on-site storage. I think, let me see, what else did I have here? So perimeter wall, yeah, the only question there related to that is it was previously approved for that kind of use, and the fencing and landscaping was acceptable, and apparently here, 3 or 4 years later, where it's not acceptable. So it's a little bit disconcerting. We're going to have to take that down and do something different when it was approved in '22. The property in the back, I think he's offered to remove any containers and from that property and try to not make that a part of any kind of approval here. Of course, it's only for the Yucaipa properties, but to remove any concerns that there might be for that. Yeah, of course, he talked about the water tank and tower, and I think he's taking care of that by storing it in the back rather than trying to put it out front as a sign. So I think he's taking care of that part. And yeah, I think like you said, it's the structure isn't being used at all. There's no water connection or sewer connection, but that is the plan. The sooner you can open up or get occupancy on a building like that, the sooner you can have restrooms for everybody and connect that building. I think he talked about a future building down the road, but it was, of course, it's quite an expense, and this was an office that he had from elsewhere. So the hope was that we could get approval to use that building. Again, it's for a construction contractor who does grading and other work like that. So you don't necessarily expect a real fancy building, but I think the building that's there, when it was all painted and cleaned up, it looked pretty nice to me. And I thought, wow, it's like this isn't, I guess you can't keep something like this. So, I think I think for us, we've heard a lot of comments, but I think it's just noting what your main concerns are, maybe before we continue it. Is it, and what's gonna make or break it? Is it whether the building is a possibility of being able to use that for a permanent time period, as a permanent structure, or what kind of timeline can we get to use it as a temporary building?
I think we're going to be able to give you some direction here.
Yeah.
Okay, like we have a little bit already here.
So that's about all I can add to what Gene already explained.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
I got a question for staff. Have all the conditions been met and maintained that was approved back in, was it 21?
So, in effect, kind of no. So I do want to, I think, clarify a few different kind of components. One is the type of outdoor storage that was originally entitled under Sarton and the scale of equipment versus construction equipment, which is larger. There is distinguishing kind of features within it and what was entitled before. One thing I did kind of notice, and you can kind of see it here. When Kenny was looking through some of the aerials. So even some of the landscaping. So there was a greater landscape buffer along 17th Street here that was subsequently kind of removed and with some storage of material. So, we didn't go through necessarily, especially because we didn't refer this to code enforcement. We're just gonna work through this. But certainly, if we wanted to take a deep dive, we could have on the conditions.
So the conditions before allowed the chain link fencing over there on 17th?
So it did require the wrought iron or tubular steel fencing to go along it. The intent was a pretty low scale, low intensity kind of storage, and so it was.
So on 17th, they did require something other than chain link fence, or was chain link fence?
I'll have to go through the conditions. I thought they had something to that effect, but it's been a while.
Okay, all right.
We have one commissioner, right, Mr. Hicks, that was here in 22, and somehow that wrought iron fencing was 3 feet tall, and I know Mr. Hicks has expressed some concerns about sight, seeing all this stuff on the property now maybe has to be higher. You mentioned several things that you thought maybe this applicant might want to consider. I think all of us, favor a business here in Yucaipa, but they've got to comply, with our city-adopted standards, policies, procedures, freeway gateway 2.4.3. And the intent, again, if you just took this property, this owner, and you put him somewhere else in Yucaipa, subject to a CUP approval, I don't think we'd be here 5 minutes. But the rub, I think, is this general plan freeway gateway 2.4.3. Therefore, we look more at a permanent building versus a module. We look more at landscaping. We look more at fencing. I got about 6 items here that if this is continued, I'd like to see in the minutes. I can verbally say them. I've got it printed on paper that might be considered.
Okay. Other comments?
Folks, I'd like to see a way for you to continue. But I do want to say that when it came through Planning Commission before I was here, and since there were no structures on it, I know that was part of the discussion, and part of my feeling is it's kind of a placeholder until there's some development in the area where a building would come in and be developed. Whether it's a solid structure, you have chain link fence up against the business next door. Trumpet vine works real good. There's a lot of it down in Redlands. I have some at my place, and it covers up a lot, over a little bit of time. But I think the tougher thing long-term is I feel like with the modular building, unless you do some facade on it to make it look a little less like a modular building with the end of it sticking out with a patio thrown on the front of it, I think you'll be able to get it, have a chance of getting it approved. But I really want to see you continue with your business there and be able to operate and do what you need to do, but I know it's going to have to look a little better for everyone here to be on board with it.
Other comments? Okay, I'd like to just reiterate that some of the other items I talked about is the fencing there on 17th Street, the landscaping, the buffer, and we even have to address even to the south to your property, if you should decide to sell your other property, that it doesn't become offensive to the person that may own it in the future.
Yeah, you never know.
So because we're only addressing the 2 parcels. So we got to consider that other parcel owned by somebody else, even though you have ownership of it. With that being said, I asked you for an opportunity. Would you like to see a continuance here? Please. And that way you can meet with staff. Okay. Is that-
Yeah, that's
is that-
acceptable
is
to
that-
staff, yeah.
Is that workable, staff? Okay, so we need to vote on that, correct? Or can
Yeah,
we
so
just-
you'll vote to continue it. We won't do a date certain just so we can work with the applicant, but we'll renotice it and then bring it back to you with.
All right. Do I have a
with-
motion?
With that.
I'll make a motion that we continue.
Okay, we have a second? Okay, we have a motion, second, any discussion?
Yeah, what about modifications on this continuous? If I vote to continue, then I have conditions, modifications. So I'm like a 2 and a 4.
Okay. With that, can you provide that to staff, and then staff can relay that to the applicant, and then they can sit down and work it out, knowing what
you
it
want
takes for you to approve?
Just me to represent modifications to them?
Well, no, I think the applicant, and tell me if I'm wrong here, I think the applicant got a feel for what each
Well,
one of us feel
I
there.
would like it to have it written down and agreed upon that this is what I'm suggesting.
Okay, then.
Not a feeling, but
Okay, then.
Clarification.
Why don't you clarify before we vote on this,
That's
the
what I
things
was
that you
wondering.
would like to do?
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I was wondering.
That'd be fine.
Okay, I think one of my concerns is the permitting and whether we're going to be gracious and not look back on 2+ years of a module that's been on the property without a permit. For me, if there's a doubt, I go down to the city. I don't wait till I get caught and then say, oh, I got to pay a permit. You know, there's money involved there. And then also the 8 shipping containers, storage containers. Seems to me there needs to be permitting for that. Obviously, it's nice to be able to take all the clutter and put it inside something, but we've got 8 of them here. Whether they go off-site or on-site, there's 8 of them. So the other one would be the fencing, which I would think needs to be probably 6 feet tall. I'm just throwing out a number. I think staff was recommending tubular steel or maybe even masonry block wall like Sorensen's across on the north end. Also, this concern about the incline from going from 17th Street south. Obviously, things in the back can be seen more easily from the street, so there's a grading situation that needs to be done. So I would be recommending grade level of property. I know that's money, but again, we're in a what do you want to call it, a image zone, considerable attention paid to aesthetics, quality, architectural presence. All of this feeds into these thoughts here. Temporary module, I think there has to be a reasonable length of time. I don't know if it's 2 years, 3 years, there needs to be an end game to get a stick permanent building because we're in this freeway corridor gateway area. Stick it somewhere else, not an issue. Increased beautification landscaping for the interior of the property. We're talking about exterior. I just like to see something on the inside besides dirt and storage stuff. So we get a tree or a couple of plants or something in there. I think the staff was recommending fir pines along 17th. Does take a while for those things to grow. Something that can beautify and hide a lot of what's going on as a storage property because of the visibility on the outer highway and the freeway. Signage that needs to take place besides a water tank, some kind of permanent signage. Paving the 9 parking spaces has to be done within a reasonable length of time. I don't know about the RV parking on there. Maybe that's legit. I got RV I could park on my property, so. But again, it's just the clutter of all this stuff on this property that if we can lessen some of that within reason, then I think we eliminate some of the concerns. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye for the continuance. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, it has been continued. Thank you. Okay. Study session. Oh, and the time is 7:44.
All right, so I will do another one of my fun education sessions on planning and really this is housing laws, I call it 201, really just how the game has changed for zoning and what people normally kind of associate with residential districts and kind of what is now allowed. do want to, I think, credit both Commissioner McHouston and O'Brien. They attended the Plan Commissioners Academy hosted by the League of California Cities this past week. And so
Thank
they also
you.
got a good deep dive into that, so they can certainly share their experience from that. But kind of covers it. But as we've kind of talked about in the past, state has declared a housing crisis. And so really since 2017, there's been hundreds of new housing laws that have come into effect. And so these are more housing focused laws than had ever been kind of done, especially, roughshod in such a short period of time in the state legislature. So certainly a lot to keep up with. And so in our previous housing kind of law discussion, stateside level goals is to do a number of things, but a lot of these laws, are focused on making housing easier to build. And so really streamlining the review process and allowing a lot more flexibility for property owners and what they do. So the first one we're going to cover, and this is a rough shot of a number of different laws that have kind of come into play, but most people are now familiar with the term accessory dwelling units, ADUs. This was not something that was allowed, in 2015 or before, unless cities had it, but since then it has become a allowed kind of dwelling unit. It's allowed in all zones that allow residential uses, so single family, rural living, multifamily, and even commercial zones that allow for commercial or for residential uses to occur. ADUs are allowed there as well. Kind of as a general kind of rule, ADUs are small kind of detached or attached residential units of no more than 1,200 square feet. And then there's also a term called junior ADU, which is kind of within a footprint of an existing house. And so under state law, you as a homeowner could build a ADU and a junior ADU on your property. And so your former lot of one house could technically have 3 different rentable kind of, entities within that property. These are all kind of ministerial approval, meaning that they do not go to the Planning Commission. Pretty much all the laws I'm going to talk about do not go to the Planning Commission. So it's just for context. You guys won't actually be necessarily voting on these type of projects, but at least gives you a better idea of where the lay of the land is. And then as part of ADUs, they do have reduced kind of fees. They do have reduced parking requirements that apply to them. Now, on the upside, ADUs are a very kind of small incremental way to add housing stock. And so in our housing element, we do rely on ADUs to kind of provide lower income housing without necessarily mass rezoning of other areas. And by and large, we have remained on track with what we thought was going to be built for ADUs per year, has stayed on track. So it has not required us to reevaluate our housing element and rezone other places in lieu of ADUs. So that's at least been helpful. And then certainly property owners that have built ADUs have really kind of a positive experience with them. It is a little bit more, rentable income or passive income that they can have on their property if they choose to do it. But this was kind of certainly the first of many laws that kind of changed how residential zones kind of operated. Then another one that has been a bit more intense, I guess, is urban lot splits, or SB9. It's actually kind of 2 different provisions. It allows you as a owner of a single family lot, you can split off the back of it regardless of what the minimum lot size of that district is. Or you can also build a second unit on your property, and then also the ADUs and all that stuff. So it really gives you flexibility on adding more housing units on it. It is something that does apply to the city, kind of citywide. There are some exceptions on where they're not permitted to happen, but it's much more like on geotechnical grounds where, a house really shouldn't be built in the first place. On the urban lot splits, it does allow the creation of additional lot, as long as the lot is at least 40% of the original lot in terms of dimension, so they have to be fairly even in size. And then the lot does have to be at least 1,200 square feet, which certainly would apply for all the lots in Yucaipa. And then the second unit certainly allows them to do the 2-unit project as well. Allows 800 square feet of residential development, 4 feet from the side and rear property lines, and this is the same with ADU. So Some of you guys may be familiar with our RL, Rural Living Land Use District, especially those in the Custom Home Overlay District. They have a 20-foot side yard setback. In both SB 9 ADU law, you can build an ADU 4 feet from property line, even though your custom home RL district, your main house, has to be 20 feet from the side property line. And then there is a affidavit for kind of a 3-year occupancy intent. So it says that you intend to be there 3 years as the property owner. Doesn't necessarily mean that you will be there 3 years, but you just say that you intend to do it. And then there are some limitations that if you do have existing tenants in a property, that you have to kind of conform to as well with SB 9. Now, there's also been changes in our commercial zones. There's kind of 2 key laws that came into play. They're very similar, but a little bit different in the sense that, AB 211 is a ministerial approval process for allowing residential units on commercially zoned land, but it does require that they are below market rate affordable units and follow prevailing wage requirements. And SB 6 is kind of a similar one, but kind of different, where it doesn't require necessarily affordable units. It does have prevailing wage and skilled and trained workforce requirements, and can be a discretionary application. So one's ministerial and kind of a little bit more tightly wrapped. The other one's a little bit more broad, but still eligible. In terms of the city of Yucaipa, we do have kind of a mixed-use overlay district that is in our general plan. And really the goal is that, in order to encourage commercial development, if they include a mixed use, we can kind of streamline some stuff. That way we can get a little bit of a stronger tax base while also meeting the RENA and kind of bypassing some of these provisions that maybe won't work for what our needs are. But also just recognizing that, residential projects are allowed in those districts already with these laws. Another one that has kind of come into play very recently, we haven't seen any kind of proposals for the city of Yucaipa, but SB 4, and they had called it Yes in God's Backyard, similar to, not in my backyard, and that kind of acronym. And really this is allowing housing at places of worship. So this is a church in Riverside that had done this a number of years ago. And they kind of built some housing units, and so that was kind of, I think, some of the inspiration for SB 4. Allows ministerial approval for 100% of those housing units on zoning for faith-based properties. Can also include nonprofit colleges as well as other kind of accessory uses, a child care center. There are some pretty hefty development standards that you can allow in a residential zone. So if a church is zoned residential, you can do 30 units per acre and 1 story higher than the residential zone district. So if you allow 2-story structures, you can build 3 in that. If it's non-residential, like a lot of our city zoning districts for places of worship, they're all institutional by and large. They're allowed to build 40 dwelling units per acre and then 1 story above the max height for that. Our institutional height limit is 75 feet, so they could, in theory, have a pretty large structure, but we do have some provisions to do that. And all these allow for the density bonus. There is a prevailing wage requirement and a qualified development classification. So it isn't just you get to build all this stuff. There are some additional, hoops that they have to jump through, but it is kind of a new law. Certainly Riverside had done this before SB 4 came into play, but we'll see where that goes in many different cities. And then another one, and this is kind of a big one that's really kind of come into play that we'll see what happens, is SB 684 and then its follow-up legislation the year after, SB 1123, which is the Starter Home Revitalization Act. It allows a ministerial approval for 10 units in all residential zones. It does have a minimum or maximum review period, so once someone turns a complete application, we have to get it approved pretty quickly. And it is 66% of the maximum allowable residential density, or what's called the Mullins density, no relation to or Commissioner Mullins. But the city of Yucaipa, the base Mullins density is 30 dwelling units per acre, which means that 66% is 20 dwelling units per acre, and it also allows the subdivision of those lots if the lots are greater than 1,200 square feet. Now, one thing that, so like SB 9, as kind of we had talked about, allows an urban lot split can happen. So even in the North Bench RL1 district, you can do SB 9 urban lot splits. This one has a specific provision where if it's in a high fire severity zone, it is not eligible. So those lots wouldn't be subject to this, but that would have certainly been a pretty big change, especially for kind of the RL1 district areas in the city. So that by and large is there, but you will probably see a few kind of infill projects that fall under this getting constructed, and they won't go to the Plan Commission for that. And so it's kind of really what I wanted to just try and cover is that the housing rules are different than what you probably thought they used to be, and certainly what we did as well. And they continue to evolve. It is a complicated mess. These laws are all kind of roughshod together. I view it as spaghetti being thrown at a wall. Some will stick, but it creates a big mess underneath, and that big mess is for us as staff to make sure that they comply. Certainly the housing concepts that people had also are different. So certainly with the wine country, there was the mantra of 1 house, 1 acre. That is a mythical being for every city. Certainly it wasn't quite an accurate statement then, but certainly with SB 9 and other changes, it is not something that exists today. And so that's kind of a challenge. Again, as I kind of mentioned, a lot of this offers a lot of new options for property owners. There's a lot more they can do with their lots than they could before. So they do have a lot more kind of rights, but there are a lot of different strings that the legislature also put in. So it's not a, you do this, you do this. There is some other things that do have to get navigated on, and so we have to enforce and make sure are caught in our review process. And then certainly I think one of the lessons that as you guys as the advisory board to the city council, while you guys won't be reviewing these individual projects, the policies of what they look like and how they should function, you guys have a chance to make recommendations to city council on kind of the design and other objective standards. And so really it's a combination of providing more encouragement for the things we do want to see, recognizing that all these new options are available for property owners, and going, okay, if things get built, this is what we're looking for. Here's our holy grails of what needs to be in place. And so certainly with the objective design standards that we had done in 2019, as well as some of the changes to the development code and then the future development code update, is really kind of looking at that going, okay, if we don't really have the ability to review this stuff, especially for a plan commission, any discretion, and all these different things keep changing, is, okay, well, at least let's set the expectations. And so while they may be able to build it, we want to make sure that it still looks attractive, provides good quality housing, and can integrate to the best of its ability. And so that's kind of where we're at. And that concludes this state session. Just really wanted to, since the last one was about all the housing laws and kind of all the things you guys kind of have to grapple with, this is kind of where the game has changed, and kind of new paradigm for how we all kind of operate, what can be built, what you guys will and more importantly won't end up seeing, and kind of us all navigating this together as one community.
So Ben, you said to make recommendations. So what would that process look like?
So I think it will be, as we kind of go through the development code update, there'll probably be a bigger push for design requirements. I know when we had done the objective design or the design guidelines in 2019, it was really kind of focused of encouraging good quality development, but really not being too directive, I think, in terms of what we required. And I think in light of where the state legislature has gone, there'll be a greater focus on being a bit more specific. My intent is still have kind of a menu list. That way it's not so prescriptive that you're designing the same box every time, but really giving the bare minimums of, we want to see this. If you do this way, we want to see this many different options trying to come through, so that at least whatever gets built is feasible for a designer to do, but still maintains integrity of design for the community and going, having good landscaping, good, tree canopy, having good accessibility through a project, good design variation, so you have different materials so it looks attractive. I think those will be where we have the most kind of leverage in trying to get that spelt out in greater detail.
I know when I was on the planning commission before, when we were reviewing some Chapman Heights neighborhoods up there, and we were looking at mainly the two-story homes, and one of the conditions I remember was any second-story windows and that had to have some form of treatment if you could see that second-story window from the street. Okay, maybe even surrounding it, that has to be, so you don't have these big walls and just a window plugged in there. You have to have some either shutters or some type of other treatment to add some character to it. Yeah. I know some cities, and this would be really restrictive, but could be in the custom home overlay areas. I believe the city of Pasadena had a requirement that every 12 feet you had to have some variation in the exterior wall.
Yeah, so we do in our multifamily, not that restrictive. Ours is at 25 feet for the multifamily, but certainly it will be kind of relaying some of those elements into it and kind of carrying it through. And really it's going to be evolution. We've been slowly kind of chipping away at this. So the wine country specific plan has a lot of architectural design standards that we built in, even for that one that's above what the city had ever done kind of before. And it'll just be kind of there. What we don't want to do is stifle flexibility in good design, but certainly at least just setting an expectation of, you may be able to do this, ministerially, that's fine, but we want it to at least, we want to make sure whatever gets built is still a good product at the end of the day. And so whatever degree we can have some teeth to enforce that will be the goal kind of moving forward.
Two questions on the ADUs. You mentioned 1,200 square feet minimum or maximum, I guess?
Yes,
maximum.
that is right.
And a junior ADU, is that 1,200 square feet or smaller, and is it attached or detached?
So a junior ADU is about 500 square feet-ish, and it is within the existing footprint of the house. So they can't do...
It's attached.
Yeah, so it's attached. It's within the framework of the house.
So you're looking at garage conversion or enclosing a patio?
Yeah, that's usually, and it's within the interior wall. So enclosing a patio, they'd have to do that before they build the junior ADU, because they couldn't enclose it as part of the junior ADU.
And also, I think you said something about the main house, the owner has to live there at least, or intend to live there 3 years. Does that apply to ADUs as well?
No, it does not apply to ADUs.
So a person could have a house and rent the main house and rent ADUs also?
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything we as a city can do with this state thing to suggest something else regarding the main house?
So the city attorney can weigh in too. So we did have provisions that were for that, and then through one of the many different state laws that further amended ADUs, that was pulled away. So they had, just for kind of frame of reference, when the ADU law first came through and kind of subsequent stuff, so the homeowner requirement to be on the property was changed. There was also provision that if the HOA had CC&Rs or other restrictions that didn't allow ADUs, that no longer applied as well. And then it also, there's been a lot of kind of enhancements related to charter cities and non-charter cities, and making sure that those rules apply to both of them. So I know Huntington Beach, I think, had tried to argue on some of the housing laws that as a charter city they didn't apply, and those were pretty swiftly denied. So,
do you know what year that change on the homeowner not having to live in the house with the ADUs, what year that was?
It's probably 21 or 22 or so. So it's been a few years since that change went into effect.
Would it do any good to revisit that to see if the state would let the city consider that? I think that's one of the rubs with ADUs, if we can get that homeowner in that house, the main house, for a period of time, number of years, it might lessen the probability. Is there any wiggle room there to revisit that to see if it's changed and allowed now?
So the state law changed to where we can't require that.
Oh, okay, that's the feeling I got at the conference was, we don't have a whole lot of wiggle room here.
With development, when someone's developing, if he has a half-acre lot, the developer still, at this point, can't do a lot split, correct?
If they have a half-acre lot, where?
Well, if you have a project that's approved on half acres, a developer can't come in himself prior to construction and do the lot split, right? It has to be the homeowner, right?
You're talking about for like a SB 9?
Right.
Yeah, so I have seen elsewhere where SB 9, the developer essentially sells the house to the homeowner. The homeowner is the one that's doing the SB 9, but the developer is building it for them.
Right.
And so people have done a workaround. Just for frame reference, the wine country, the building setbacks that were included, as well as the size kind of requirements, really kind of limit SB 9's applicability to that. So you're not going to see that kind of come through there. And that was by design, recognizing that, the standard RL1 projects that were entitled before those were built out, you would certainly see probably a developer doing SB 9 slots, a homeowner.
Well, and that's what I was pushing for on that committee, because, you're looking at, if you don't plan for that, then you open it up where they can come in and,
Yeah.
because what I've heard that's happened in other areas, that developers are selling a home that have options to purchase the lot split property, do the lot splits, build it out, and so you can effectively end up on a half-acre lot with 6 units.
And I think, and the other commissioners that went to the Planning Commission Academy can probably relay this as well, as good developers that know what the rules are, definitely will use the rules to them.
Every way possible.
Yeah, and so if there's a way to make it work, those that are looking to do it will take advantage of it.
So that's why, everyone would like to have 1 acre lots and half-acre lots, but the way it stands right now, it just opens you up for higher density in all of those areas than what we were.
Yeah.
I know it was controversial, but by combining or moving it into quarter acre or so lots and leaving the open space prevented more development or more rooftops, right? More residents, more traffic, and it's a tough thing right now to.
Well, and I think to that point, trying across the board is there's been a lot of different laws that have changed what the game is. And so unless you're, armchair just loving to learn about what the state legislature is doing, it's very easy to miss, I think,
And that's
all
Ben.
the changes.
That's what Ben does.
Yeah, that's what I do, and with help with the city attorney. And so, and it is kind of tough. Is what was the game? What was the norm? What if you came to the city 20 years ago and said, "Hey, I'm buying this piece of property. What can I do?" What you could do then, what John McMains would have told you 20 years ago, and what the state law is today are two very different worlds. So,
Everything that anyone's thought of to try to get around it,
yeah,
the developer, the associations and the groups that are doing that are trying to
the,
counteract it at state level.
and there's a lot of different, the conference, they kind of relate, it's not a partisan issue. There's so many different groups that are all kind of piling together for one reason or another, and that's just where the trend is going. Right. And so, so I just want to kind of give this as kind of a thing, because kind of where your guys' role begins and ends, and what you may see get built certainly has been a different thing.
Sidelines and watch.
So, so it's it is kind of where we're at. And so, but do want to, again, share my appreciation for Houston and O'Brien for attending that. It's a great learning opportunity. So next year in March, if anyone wants to go, I'll provide details as soon as that's known. I think it's going to be in NorCal area. Monterey. So whoever wants to spend a few days in Monterey with me, feel free.
But there is positive news on the horizon. The tides are starting to change. So 500 laws enacted over the last 10 years, all designed to remove local control from housing development. City has no control over it, little control over it. We have little control over it. Like Ben said, we can tell how it looks. That's pretty much about it. Now the legislature is trying to see, okay, what of these 500 laws are actually producing? What is being beneficial? What's being used? And what they're seeing is really the ADUs are really the biggest thing that was meeting the state's housing population. But we're no better off today than we were 10 years ago when they started enacting all of these laws. So now you're starting to see the state shift toward, okay, so it's not a local control problem like they thought it was. It's a funding problem for the builders. It's really cost. But the city or the state's not in a position to help with that because of the deficit that they're in. I think there's minuscule money allotted to it in the next fiscal year, but that's going to be the next challenge, is funding development into these areas.
Yeah.
All right, well, that concludes my.
Okay. Do we have any announcements from the commission?
I got one last thought is, in light of this proposal that we were having tonight regarding outside storage and Redlands outlawing it, we talked about maybe revisiting that when we do the developmental code study or something.
Yeah, we can.
Maybe a C1, 2, 3, 4, and we look at this outside storage component in Yucaipa.
Yeah, we can certainly throw that on our list. And so that will be slowly ramping up very shortly. So do want to note for announcements, I will let you guys go through, but I did get a reminder from our city clerk's office that if you have not filled out your annual Form 700, please do so.
All right. Are we meeting, what?
We will be meeting on April Fool's Day. We'll have a discussion on car washes based on city council direction. So city council did direct staff to prepare an ordinance related to car washes. So that will be coming to you guys at that meeting. Also do want to note at the last city council meeting, they did rescind the freeway corridor specific plan. So that plan is no longer around. And so there'll probably be some efforts in the future of kind of where the city goes with that area. And you guys will be cued in as we go through that. So it's kind of it on the planning front.
I'll be on vacation April 1. And that's not an April Fool, so it's legit.
Okay.
Being we're down one commissioner, is anybody else going to be gone? Because that could make a difference in our meeting.
I will be gone. I'll be out of state.
So we're 2 down, so it leaves 4 of us. If any one of the 4 of us are going to be gone, we should let Ben know to push that out.
Yeah, the car wash ordinance, because it's a change in the zoning code and land use stuff, it required pretty hefty notice in front, so that's already been noticed. So, please be here. Yeah.
So if the 4 of us, if any one of us,
I'm actually going to be in Utah, so.
so then now you've been notified that we're not going to have a meeting on the 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, my first miss.
No, that's the way it goes.
All right. Are you guys available for the second meeting in April?
Yes.
15th, yeah.
15th? Okay.
Yeah, who could forget that day?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Should have handed out the Kleenex.
Okay. Then we'll reshuffle that around. So.
Okay, and that gives you enough time to renotice it
It
on the 15th, for the 15th? That gives you, do you have to, how many days notice do you have to give on that?
So the new state laws, it has to be noticed at least 20 days, but it's also in the paper, which requires me to send them the notice on a Monday so they can publish on a Friday. So it ends up with like a month-long window, which is a little frustrating. That law is a new law that happened just this year, so it used to be 10 days, so it was a little bit easier to maneuver. But I think that should still be okay. So
Okay, and you'll let us know ahead of time in case other people are planning trips?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements, questions? All right, we'll adjourn at 8:14. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Thanks.